I love Westlake. It's an amazing school and it is incredibly competitive. So I want to make sure that I really do kind of start explaining a few things to you all about how your application will be reviewed. Just out of curiosity, let me go ahead and see, or hear some of the questions that you guys have. So right here.
How many APs can you bring over to UT? Do you have like a limit?
So our question is about AP exams and how many units can you actually get credit for transferring. It's a really good question. It's always up to the receiving school that will determine how much credit you get in terms of the APs. But you really want to keep in mind that your intention of taking the AP exams, it really should be to really create an experience in the intended field of study, also to show what you're intellectually curious about. And when you're applying to STEM majors, especially coming from Westlake, you want to be taking the most rigorous AP courses that you can possibly get your hands on. So, when you're mapping out your academic plan, and when you're thinking about the sequencing of those classes, when am I going to take BC Cal? When am I going to take Physics C? Do I need to get to micro econ? Is macro econ enough? This is called sequencing of those courses. You really want to make sure that you're keeping in mind the major you're applying to. How can you demonstrate your intellectual curiosity through the academic coursework? So yes, you want to get credit for those classes as well, but always check with the receiving institution. Good question, Ms. Mel.
Jump off the AP question. Say you took, I don't know, AP Bio, and you didn't submit that score to the college, because I know you're allowed to submit certain scores. Is that like a disadvantage to you in comparison?
Emma, right?
Yes.
So Emma had a really good question, and it's about submitting AP test scores. All right. And there are a lot of bad advice out there. So let me just kind of back up. And I haven't even really started talking about UT yet, but I'll do it after this question. So AP courses and tests, all right, these AP tests are not required for college admissions. If you take an AP class and you actually do not submit your AP test score, you will not be at any disadvantage, all right? You own those AP test scores. There's only 1 or 2 colleges in America that require all test scores, which would be a school like Georgetown. So when you're taking these AP classes and you're taking the AP test, and before you submit any AP score to a university, I want you all to first of all think about how this score can actually influence your application review. A lot of advisors and consultants will say if you have a 3 or a 4 in an AP test, submit it. But I'm here to say if you're applying to a really competitive major at the University of Texas, such as the Macomb School of Business or even computer science, submitting a 4 in an AP class that is a class that you are planning on majoring in could actually be the very reason why you actually don't get admitted into that major. You always want to lead with your strengths, especially if you're applying to a very selective major that has single-digit acceptance rates. So think carefully and wisely before you submit any test scores. Now, across the board, 9 times out of 10, a 4 is amazing. 5s are better. But when you're dealing with college admissions officers that are looking for any reason not to admit you, a 4 could be that very reason, especially when you're applying to some of the most selective colleges in America. A Harvard could be any reason why a 4 would not get you admitted. Did I answer your question?
Sort of. I have one more like jump on.
Okay.
To say, like, they know you took the AP class, because obviously it's on your transcript. Are they going to be like, why didn't she submit?
She's asking, these universities are going to see that you took the AP course. Are they going to question why you didn't submit a test score? And the answer is no. It's none of their business. It's not required for college admissions, so you are not at any disadvantage if you hold on to your test scores. My purpose of submitting AP test scores is to back up with evidence your proficiency and your excellence in that discipline. Some of them, most of the time, I'll say Sim 4s, obviously Sim 5s, but depending on the major you may be applying to and how the rest of your college application reads, I might not recommend submitting a 4 to the University of Texas if it's not going to help you out. I think this is a good time to go ahead and get started with the University of Texas. And so for those of you all that just walked in, welcome. Make sure that you take notes, and you guys can definitely ask me questions. Let me give a couple of disclosures on this. The University of Texas and also Texas A&M actually does not release data based off of the majors. So they will release general information about admission statistics, meaning how many students applied, how many were admitted, males versus females, and give some of the ranges in terms of what a competitive GPA was and SAT and things like that, but they don't release specific data points about majors. Now, I have an idea of what some of the most selective majors are based off the data that I have and conversations with other admissions officers, and and a lot of high schools keep data on that as well. So that's why I can kind of provide an opinion about what some of the more selective majors are. Also, the information I'm giving you, my stats that I do release to everybody, is backed up by public information. So when I talk about my data points, this is coming from the freshman profile for the University of Texas and also Texas A&M. It's also coming from the common data set, So those are just my general disclosures. Let me talk about UT. Now here's how the presentation is going to go. I'll talk about stats at the University of Texas, and then I'm going to talk about stats at A&M. And then I'm going to explain to you, yes?
Because the person who they're talking, I can't
I know.
understand.
We got you. I think that, yeah. Okay. The University of Texas, I just want you all to understand that in 2014, the University of Texas received around 34,000 college applications. This was in 2014, around 34,000 applications. In this past year, 2022, they received 66,000 college applications. Y'all can do the math on that. And I will tell you that they didn't add more seats to the classroom. The seats are still the same seats. So what that means is the more applications a university receives, the lower the acceptance rates can be. They can really skim from the top. So last year, they received around 66,000 college applications for about 18,000 seats, all right? Out of the 18,000 students that were admitted, 75% of those students admitted were in the top 6% of their high school class, all right? Which meant anybody not in the top 6% of their high school class had around a 12% acceptance rate, which is really scary if you think about it, because schools like Rice, Johns Hopkins, they also have a 12% acceptance rate. So it is the Hunger Games to get into the University of Texas these days. I don't think that parents are making it any easier, because back in the day, parents, as long as you had the right GPA and a test score, you got in. And students are feeling a lot of social pressure to get into these colleges. So, you can go online and you can Google, because I'm sure some of y'all have Googled average acceptance rate UT, and you'll see in Google it says 28%. 28%, that's a lot different than 12%. How are you getting this math? Well, you have to understand that out of 75% of the students admitted, there was 18,000 students admitted, 75% of those had a 100% chance at getting into the University of Texas. They were in the top 6% of their high school class. That is why that number looks so inflated. So there's been a 20% increase in college applications over the last 3 years for the University of Texas. I have a few reasons as to why this is happening, by the way. I also want to go ahead and let you all know that the University of Texas actually does not reject anybody. You're never going to get a letter that says thanks, but no thanks. You'll get capped. And what this is this is a letter that says, we appreciate you for applying. If you want to be a Longhorn, go to one of our satellite schools or sister schools, UT San Antonio, UT El Paso. You can go there for a year and then transfer into College of Liberal Arts. The cap offer is another opportunity to get into the University of Texas. It's a rejection. Don't get it twisted. So if you want to end up in anything STEM, business, engineering, pre-med, whatever, you're not getting into the CAP program. Is it possible? Maybe, but it's probably not going to happen. So the CAP, you have to understand this is their rejection. It's not necessarily anything to celebrate. A&M, according to the 2022 stats, this past year, I'm sorry, actually, you back up here. Yeah, we start with 22 and then I'll go with 23. I think it's important that you understand the difference. What's happened over the last 2 years with A&M. So in 22, they had 45,000 applications received for about 28,000 students admitted. So 45,000, 28 students are going to have an opportunity to be an Aggie. Out of the 28,000 students that were admitted, I want to say 60% of those students that were admitted were considered auto admit. They were in the top 10% of their high school class. So that meant 17,000 of the 28,000 students admitted, had a 100% chance basically, which means if you were outside the top 10%, your acceptance rate was around 40% chance. All right. About 28,000 applications were holistically reviewed for around 11,000 seats. The Texas A&M actually just recently released, and I just learned this today as a matter of fact, that 100% of the students will be holistically reviewed for the School of Engineering, regardless of your class rank. And by the way, I know that Westlake doesn't rank, but the universities will rank you. So it doesn't matter. Even if Westlake did rank you, every single university will end up re-ranking you. And A&M is really good about releasing your class rank. After you apply to A&M within 1 or 2 days, you can log back into your Howdy portal and it'll tell you if you're in the top quartile, second quartile, things like that. Also, A&M is really intentional about recruiting minority applicants. About 20% of their incoming class is going to be first generation applicants. These are students that are underrepresented in the applicant pool. And as I do a quick scan here, I don't really see any minority applicants. I see folks that are going to be overrepresented in the applicant pool, no surprise. If you're white, if you're Asian American or Indian American, these universities will receive more college applications from you than other races. And let me guess, I would say probably most of y'all are interested in STEM majors too. So while you may be a minority in the general population, I'm sharing this stat with you because a lot of universities are intentional about diversifying their incoming class. And when you have A&M recruiting 20% of their incoming class to be first generation students, less for everybody else. You have to be that much better than the rest of the competition. Last year's stats for A&M, as I told you 2 years ago, 45,000 applications. Last year, they had a 15,000 application increase to 60,000. Yes?
What do you mean by first generation?
Meaning that your mom or your dad didn't go to college. And so when you apply to college, these universities will see, you'll list whether or not your mom or your dad went to college, what their career, what their profession is. These universities will also see your race. Are you white? Are you Indian American, Asian American, Black or brown, or Hispanic? It is completely up to you. I do know some transcripts will list it though, on the transcripts. So, so keep that in mind. And there is bias and discrimination in admissions. You can look at your name and take a guess what you might be. Also, admissions officers will see your zip code, so they know, are you coming from a very affluent area? What types of resources do you have access to? So when the admissions officer looks at your application, they know a lot about you. Your zip code, your race, your high school, the type of background, education level that your families come from. There's a ton of information that they will have about you. And all of this will go into their decision-making process. Back to A&M, 15,000 application increase. Last year, they were on the common application, UT and A&M, which is one of the reasons why we saw so many applications. So they had 60,000 applications. The year before, they had 45. And so far, we don't have the full data yet. This is for the class of 23. We don't have all the data yet, but we know there was around 13,000 auto admits so far. The data is still coming out, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. Why in the world are all of these two universities receiving record-breaking applications? They're getting so many of them. Well, I think that you have more students applying to more colleges than ever before. What I mean by that is not more people, more students want to go to UT. It's just that folks are able to click the easy apply button on the common application. The common application is a general cookie jar, and all the cookies represent universities. And it's so much easier now to apply to colleges electronically. You know, parents, when we went to college, I had to call the university, get a paper application. I was not writing a main essay to a university I wasn't really serious about. I only applied to 2 colleges back in the day. Nowadays, on average, students are applying to like 8 schools, 8 universities. And so thank you, technology. You have more students applying to more colleges. And that's adding fuel to the fire. I also think that, you know, test optional really was a game changer. You know, now that you don't have to submit a test score to get into UT or A&M. If you have straight A's, you think you've got a real shot at getting in. I've got straight A's, you know, but that's actually very misleading because the University of Texas really wants folks in the top 6% of their high school class. For A&M, top 10. By state law, they have to admit you. By the way, I want to be clear. I want to clarify this. Admit you into the university, not give you the major that you're looking for. We'll talk about that in a moment. So test optional really has lowered the perception that it's easier to get into these colleges. And when you're applying to a STEM major, you better believe that these colleges want those test scores. You know, a good test score will help you. You know, it's going to be an obstacle. It will be a barrier if you don't submit these test scores. And, you know, as I mentioned, you've got schools like Westlake where there's this real social pressure. You guys apply to the exact same universities. UT, A&M, Clemson, you know, UGA, Tennessee, which saw a 40% increase in applications last year, most of them coming from Texas. You know, so there's this short list of schools where students are crowdsourcing their college list. Parents are telling their kids also what's a good school to go to, and you need to stop that. 2 things I want y'all to get out of this presentation. 1, start early, all right, because a lot of you, it'll come down to your activities. That's the reason why you get into these universities. And 2, stop obsessing about UT and A&M. There's a ton of amazing colleges out there. So stop, you know, obsessing on the website and don't tour only UT. Go tour a variety of colleges. Now, I want to talk about some of the key differences between A&M and UT. All right, I think it's important now that you understand the stats, that you understand some of the key differences between how these universities will evaluate applications. I need questions so far. Yes.
You know, I was kind of curious. You know, the population is not really growing that rapidly. Is it just that the number of applications is going up, and it's because the average applications per student is going up?
He said, you know, what's happening? We're not seeing a boom in the general population. So when I said a moment ago, and then I'm gonna, will have a volunteer just pass. If you don't have one of these, raise your hand, and Emma is going to pass these out. Thanks, Emma. You have more students applying to more colleges. It's creating this hyper focus in which, you know, colleges, the more applications received, the lower the acceptance rates. You know, 18,000 students at UT. They've not admitted many more than 18,000 students over the last several years. Their applications are skyrocketing. Does that make sense?
It does. And I want to follow up if I may. Is there any kind of a percentage allocated for the out-of-state students?
So good question. Yes, out-of-state acceptance rates. So as I mentioned, if you go on the common data set, you can look at section F2 for any big state public school. So for those of you that are looking at UIUC, Michigan, Chapel Hill, any big state school, I recommend looking at the common data set, section F2, and that will give you the out-of-state acceptance rate for that university. For the University of Texas, it is 11%. If you are an out-of-state student applying into the University of Texas, good luck. You better walk on water. It's going to be tough. So you have an advantage being an in-state resident. There's a silver lining in all of this. The University of Texas will accept an overwhelming number of in-state applicants. Key differences between UT and A&M. first of all, with the University of Texas, everybody's going to be holistically reviewed, not just engineering, like at Texas A&M. 100% of the applicants will go through the exact same review process. It doesn't matter if you're valedictorian or if you're in the bottom of the class, which means that when the University of Texas is looking at your transcripts, the number one most important thing is a really awesome, solid GPA. Second, they're looking at the level of rigor behind that GPA. To get a good high GPA, you got to take rigorous classes. The third thing that they're looking at is your class rank. Here's your GPA. Here's the rigor behind that. Did you get easy A's or did you get hard A's? Meaning, you know, if you're applying to a STEM major, your senior year, did you switch gears after pre-cal and do AP stats? Or did you do BC calculus? Or did you take both AP stats and BC calculus? The sequencing of these classes matters. The third thing, as I mentioned, was your class rank. And the fourth most important thing to the University of Texas is going to be your fit to major. Are you applying with experience in the major? Are you able to back up with evidence that you're truly intellectually curious about ECE or going into a pre-med program or even kinesiology? How can you point to your experience through the clubs, activities, your summers will be pulled apart? Everything will be fair game in the high stakes world of college admissions. When you're going through a holistic review, the clock is ticking as an incoming freshman. You're applying with all 4 years of your high school experience. 1 second. So the classes, clubs, summers, everything. And your senior year will also be important because when you apply to the University of Texas, you'll list your classes for your senior year, and you should all apply with an expanded resume. And on your expanded resume, you'll list the classes, clubs, and organizations you'll be participating in through the end of your senior year. Pro tip. That's a pro tip. You want to make sure that you do that, because if your application is getting reviewed in December or November, on your expanded resume, you should have listed what you're actually doing. If you text me, I'll give you a link, or I'll give you our template for free to the expanded resume. You'll use this when applying to the University of Texas. Is there anybody in the room not applying to UT? Okay, everybody. All right, good, great, because I have a different gift that I would give you, but I can just, you know, cross all the bases with this. So I'll give you the number to text me and you can get the expanded resume. Use this with your application to the University of Texas. So key distinction is that everybody goes through a holistic review with UT, not the case at A&M. Only those outside of the top 10% will be reviewed holistically for A&M, except if you're applying to engineering. Anybody want to be an engineer in the room? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3 people, that's it? Okay, love it. Holistic review, so class rank is not going to get you in. And this is new. Actually, this is on the website. I just saw it today, that due to the volume of applications, everyone's reviewed holistically for that major. I don't even know why I'm reading this. Like, I had this presentation memorized by now, but I have a brand new outline and now I'm getting nervous. I think it's because I'm used to talking to high school teenagers all day and there's parents in the room. And now I'm like, oh my God, I have to like be professional now. Yes, sir.
So when it comes to a holistic review for class of 2024, their freshman year was shot down by COVID. How are they judging like activities and stuff straight down here where they pretty much weren't doing anything?
This is a really, what's your name, sir?
John.
This is a good question that John's asking. What do we do about the freshman year? Everything was online. How are we able to, you know, what do we do about that here? We have to talk about what we did. Well, first of all, understand the person reading your application is a human. They went through the exact same experiences that you all went through. And the admissions officers are compassionate. It's important that you add context within your college application, meaning, you know, that first year of the pandemic, you know, everything was online. So how did you handle that? Did you create a home-based project at home? Did you take on additional responsibilities in the household? For some of the folks that are applying to pre-med programs, they did, you know, Zoom shadowing in a physician's lounge in which they were actually writing and conducting research at home as they were virtually shadowing folks in the operating room. So, you know, I realized the freshman year looked a lot different than the sophomore year and the junior year, but creating context around how you handle the pandemic, if you were out any resources, maybe everybody was at home, and I've got a toddler that's 2.5, and it can be hard working at home at times. And so if your grades were impacted because of this, there'll be a section that's called additional information in the common application, and you can advise about that. I really recommend sitting with a counselor and getting information about that, because this is not a one size fits all, and everybody should even complete that section. But giving the admissions office information about how you handle the pandemic will be key. Okay. Also, in the school profile, a lot of schools will address how the high school handled the pandemic. How did they make pivots? What types of resources did they provide? Were there staffing issues, administrative issues, book issues? So, your freshman year, if your grades weren't really that great, there might be a blemish on it. Well, the good news is admissions officers love a comeback story, but we all went through this together, so they'll be forgiving. Is it time for me to stop? Just kidding. Other key distinctions is the impacted majors. So we all know STEM majors are the most have the lowest acceptance rates at a university. At A&M, May School of Business and Engineering will have the lowest acceptance rates. May School of Business only has around 1,500 seats. And so that's important to know. Choose wisely. And also the biggest decision you have to make with UT is picking the right major. UT has around 170 areas of study. There is more majors than just business or computer science or engineering or, biology. If you want to be a doctor, there are other options other than biology, chemistry, and biochemistry. So important that you do understand the options you have because they will have implications. The other thing I want to talk about is the actual application review. So A&M has what's called rolling admissions, in which they will read applications as they come in. So, for the more impacted majors, like the May School of Business or even engineering, while the deadline for A&M may not be until November or December, you're welcome to apply then. The reality is you're getting whatever seats are left over. And pretty soon, a target school like A&M might actually be in a reach school for you, because you're getting whatever seats are left over. Now, our timeline, we like to get everything done by September the 1st, going into the senior year. Our juniors have actually started writing prep now. We give them all of May, all of June. We're doing prep work now on discussing possible topics. And then by July the 1st, everyone is done with their expanded resume. I should give you guys a timeline. If you start now with essay prep, by July the 1st, you can get done with your expanded resume, your activity list, and your main essay. July, you can prep for your short answer questions. Your college applications go live on August the 1st. By that point, you're actually almost done with everything. And then you're just applying the finishing touches to your short answer questions. You can get your college application submitted by September the 1st. And from a statistical point of view, that's an advantage, because your applications are on top of the stack. And for those schools that have rolling admissions, you're bending the odds in your favor of getting admitted. There's more than just A&M that has rolling admissions, by the way. So if you're a junior, then now is the time to start thinking about who's writing those letters of recommendation, start looking at possible topics for the main essay. You want a really long runway. You don't want to start working on your main essay in August. Because how many drafts can you really get done? And working on a main essay at midnight, nothing is going to come out of that good. And as a senior, you're only going to be getting a few hours of sleep anyway. So do this over the summer while you have the time. Also, a big difference between A&M and UT. So UT doesn't have rolling admissions. Why would you want to submit your application so early then? Well, I mean, first of all, for your own sanity, if you get all the writing done over the summer, why would you wait until September to work on this application? But also if you're applying for scholarships or honors programs, you have to submit your main application first and then apply for the honors program. But for A&M, another key distinction is that they are tracking demonstrating interest. How many of you all have toured Texas A&M? Raise your hand. One person, two people, three people. How many of you are applying to A&M? I see a dad raising your hand, but you toured it with a student, right? And then how many of you are applying to A&M? Raise your hand. Hi. You are not on the radar. If you are not touring that university, if you don't know your admissions officer, and they're actually looking at, are you subscribed to their newsletters? They're going to look at this. You have to think of college admissions as a contact sport. How many of you guys play sports in the room? Lacrosse, anybody? Are you going to win that game on the bench? No, you need to be in the field. So same thing with college admissions. There's a lot of universities that are now protecting their yield rate. They don't want to get rejected. If they invite you to the party, they need to know that you're coming. All right. And so how do you highlight or signal you're coming to the party? Well, you need to express authentic interest in the university. You've toured the university, you've done virtual presentations, you know your admissions officer, you're subscribed to the newsletters, you're clicking on the links, you're actually logging in and checking your university portal. Once you've submitted your application, you should show that you sincerely want to know, are you admitted? They're looking at all of these things. College admissions is different, isn't it, parents? We never had to do any of this. So demonstrating interest is showing the university you're applying to some love. But more importantly, aside from trying to play a game and beat the system, students, y'all need to be doing this for your own benefit. It's not just the university sizing you up. Take back your control. You should be vetting out these colleges too. You know, you should be learning about that institution. Where you go to college will be one of the biggest decisions you ever make in your entire life. And it's probably going to be one of your first real adult decisions. You owe it to yourself to apply to colleges that you know something about. And moms and dads out there, where you send your baby to college, well, the cost of a bachelor's degree these days, that's probably going to be one of the most expensive gifts you ever give your child. All right. College brings together two things that parents we care about the most, our money and our kids. So if you are not engaged in this process as a co-pilot to your pilot, you need to be doing that because you do not want to allow a minor to make all these purchasing decisions. You need to be touring colleges and universities, vetting out these programs and getting them excited about all colleges and universities and not just putting all of your eggs in a basket and saying UT and A&M. And by the way, you want to know the third, the place that enrolls the third, how do I say this? Any guesses about the institution that enrolls the third highest number of students from Westlake? ACC. I never understood this, you guys. Y'all go to Westlake, you work your tail off, you take really hard classes. You're not at an easy high school. You're in sports and athletics. You're in clubs and organizations. Some of y'all are creating nonprofits and apps and all this crazy stuff. Why would you do that to yourself? You should not be attaching a social value to any university. You know, I'm a big fan of the community college. I think it's very important for some folks, but you should not feel defeated if you don't get into UT or A&M and say you're going to go to the community college and try again. What makes you think that they're going to consider you a second time? You know they're going to pull your college application that you submitted the first time. And you know it's a different review process. So if you go to ACC and apply as a transfer student a second time, they'll pull your first application and then you can see, why are you doing this to yourself again? What do you have to do for me? Okay. So keep that in mind. You need to be really in love with all the colleges and universities you're applying to. So I've talked about some of the key distinctions. The other big thing is UT has what's called fit to major. This is a term that the university has really coined, in which your biggest decision will be picking the major that's right for you. Any questions so far? I'm talking. Yes.
Going back to you having so many majors that probably put fewer applicants than others. Is there any kind of benefit to applying to one that is less popular and transferring to?
She's asking a question that we get asked all the time. There's a lot, and the University of Texas doesn't release data points on majors. And I think the reason why they don't release stats on majors is because they know that the moment you see single digit acceptance rates for some of those majors, you might try to play this game. So this is This strategy used to work, but the university, because of their screening process, they caught on. So let me explain to you. A lot of folks will pick easy major, psychology, by the way. Used to be the easy major. Out of all of the university, it receives more applications than any other major. So why don't I just declare psychology and then I can apply to be a business student later? Doesn't work that way. Leveling up does not work the same way as leveling down. And so what I mean by this, and the university has actually said this before, you will declare a major and you've got to back up with evidence that you are sincere about that major through the types of classes, clubs, organizations, work, research opportunities. So, if you apply for an easy major, but all your experience is in business, you don't have any experience in the major you're applying to, they're going to see right through that. The second thing that I want you to understand is that transferring internally within a college, yes, that is absolutely possible. So inside the College of Liberal Arts, you have psychology and social psychology and human dimensions of organization and linguistics and all of that kind of stuff. That will probably not be a problem. Once you get in, try it outside for social side, not really for you. But jumping from college to another college, especially a more impacted university, probably not going to work. And then just now you're stuck with the major that you really didn't really want to do anyway. That's going to really suck for you too. So be authentic with this. Now, the University of Texas has a really cool tool called My Majors. And you can Google this, and you can take this inventory and it will auto-populate possible majors you may want to consider. I really encourage you to look at all of the areas of majors and select the major that is right for you. Now, some of y'all may have to make a really hard decision. Do you want to be a Longhorn or do you want to be a business student? You might not be able to be both. And so what I mean by that is start looking at the majors that have some similarities aligned outside of business, because there's an opportunity for possible overlap. UT's really great about minors and also getting certificates too. Okay, yes, ma'am.
I was like 2 weeks ago, I was Googling like majors for pre-med, and like psychology was one of the top majors and you use psychology as an example as an easy major. So theoretically, someone was majoring in psychology for pre-med, would that give them a higher chance of getting into UT?
This is a good question, and I don't know necessarily for UT. Maybe we don't have stats on this, but I will tell you, if you want to be a doctor, you can study anything. The prerequisites for medical school obviously are going to be within the College of Natural Science at UT, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, that sort of thing. But when you're applying to medical school, when you're applying to medical schools, they like a diverse incoming class. So if your goal is to get into medical school, then do something that you're truly curious about. And if psych is it, this might be the last time you can study psychology, because after then you're going to be digging cadavers. So, medical schools, they can't have an entire incoming class of bio students, right? They want to have some business students and some engineering students and some psych students. So it's a really good strategy for medical school. And again, going back to what are you truly curious about? Plus, psychology can have a segue into neuroscience and all these other things. So it would make sense. Other question? Yes.
So I think this is right, but so when colleges, especially UT, take your, say, GPA, they always take your unweighted and then they add on, that's just what I learned, but like they add on to make it weighted. Because like I was talking to a counselor and she was like, well, I mean, like obviously you're taking a lot of AP classes that those points didn't matter, but like they're really looking at your unweighted GPA rather.
So there's a lot of crazy high schools that do crazy calculations, so all universities, when you apply to that university, they're going to strip all these fancy points and reassign a GPA to you. All right, you'll apply. I recommend applying with your weighted GPA, but you will be have that recalculated. So don't get too caught up on that right now. What you do want to do is know how to read your transcripts. And you should be logging into Naviance to make sure that everything makes sense as well, because there's human errors in Naviance. All right, so take out your cell phones. I'm going to give you this number to text me. All right, and I'll make sure that if you text me, I'm going to give you the expanded resume. Free gift. All of our scholars use this when applying to UT. I didn't explain what it is. I'll explain to you in just a moment. Okay, so I'm going to give you the number to text. It's 512-571-3804. Again, 512-571-3804. And for those of y'all on Facebook Live, I'm sorry I didn't even reach y'all. You could do this too. All right, here's what you want to send me. Parents. And if you're a kid, then give your parents information. All right, parent first name, last name. Also the year that your student's graduating. So 24 or 25, 26. And then also your email address. So parent first name, parent last name, email address, year you're graduating, high school. And then if you're interested in learning more about services, do an asterisk, do a star. That's how we'll know to reach out to you. If there's no star, don't worry. We're not going to give you a buzz. So parent first name, last name, your email address, the year that your student's graduating school, and then if you're interested in a discovery call, we'll reach out to you. And if you want to add your student's first name, cool. I'll also sign you up for our free monthly newsletter. We put out a free monthly newsletter. So I'll add you to that. If you don't want the monthly newsletter and you just want the expanded resume, just say no newsletter, but I promise we don't spam. And then again, if you want to learn more about services, just add a star. And then that's when we'll go over how all this works. Now, what are you getting? The expanded resume. The expanded resume is another tool that is really unique to the University of Texas. While it's not required, we require it for the scholars that we work with. The expanded resume is a really incredible opportunity to demonstrate all the amazing things that you've done in high school. And the admissions office will actually read this. Unlike other schools where you will submit a resume, it's not required, and it'll go, admissions just is not going to read it. This is a really cool tool that you can use to your advantage. It's not really a resume though, so get ready. It's generally 3 to 5 pages. I've seen them go up to 8. And the unique thing about this is the way that you rank and order. All right, so you'll list every single thing that you did, starting with the summer, going into your freshman year of high school. Clubs, organizations, certifications, research opportunities, all that kind of crazy stuff. Now, the order of this, now if you're applying to an engineering major, here's where things get tricky. You're not going to list the items in chronological order. You're going to think about this as I'm backing up with evidence, the heavy hitting items first, and then I'm going to work down. So if you have a section for clubs, you'll list the activities that you did that's directly related to engineering first, and then you'll work down. You know, so you'll list robotics first, and then maybe DECA's last. You know, research, maybe you have research and maybe you want to talk about an app that you developed, and then maybe the other research you did was, I don't know, something else. So do not list the events in chronological order. Each of your sections, you'll list the events as they relate directly to your first choice major, and then you work down. The second thing that's unique about this resume is you need to quantify every single thing. How many years, how many hours, how many weeks, how many months? That's what you want to make sure that you're doing. You want to back up that this is more than just a day camp that you did. You actually did this 4 weeks, or maybe you did it for 6 months. So you want to list the items in not in chronological order. You want to back up with quantifying every single thing that you've done as well. Action verbs for the win: organize, manage, spearhead, created, founded, those sorts of things. So there's more details about this. It's on our website. We actually have an entire blog about the expanded resume. My pro tip for this: do your expanded resume first. Bless you. Expanded resume first. And then once you get time to work on the essays, you want to layer your application with evidence of a fit to major. You'll pull content from your expanded resume and you'll weave it throughout your essays, so that the admissions officer is constantly reading something new about you and you're highlighting your evidence of the fit to that major, right? We always start with the expanded resume first. Let's start there and let's think about the opportunities we have to really highlight your strengths and tell your story throughout your college application. This will help you with what's called your fit to major. It's essential. You can be valedictorian of your high school, have a 1600 or 36 or both test score, and still not be able to get into the business school or psychology if you don't have experience. Experience for the win. You have to be more than just stats. All right. Yes, no.
So you said you would mention like the things that like not chronological order, the things that you were like good at or something. So would that count as certificates?
Certificates, absolutely. Everything can go on that expanded resume.
So, like,
100%.
I'm getting my patient care technician certificate and my pharmacy technician certificate, and I have like 8 CPR certificates, even with the cats and dogs. I would put that first.
It depends. So this is a good question. I would need to actually look at, I need to know more about you, to give you. So I'm here to give information, but in terms of advising, I don't know enough about you to make that recommendation, but kudos to you. Hey. All right. So we've talked about key distinctions in the application review process, the holistic review, how it differs from A&M and UT. We've talked about impacted majors. We've talked about rolling admissions at A&M. We've talked about demonstrating interest for A&M. We talked about how UT has what's called fit to major. We've talked about the expanded resume and how you can use this as a tool to your advantage. All y'all text me, hopefully, so you'll be getting the expanded resume template. Essays matter. This is the 2 things you can do in your, if you're feeling a little bit like freaked out, like, oh my God, we got to get started. 2 things you can do, juniors, to have a big impact overall. Pro tip, this summer, be intentional with what you do. It will be the last thing an admissions officer is going to see before they say, are you in or out, as Clyde Hoop says. So you can provide experiences, moments of revelation on this summer so that you can do that, whether it's through camps, organizations, volunteerism, certifications, these things. So be intentional with what you put on your summer. Number 2, your essays have got to be a slam dunk home run. We have a free, we have a webinar that we do monthly called Award-Winning Essays. If you go to our website, if you click on the free events tab on our website, we just had one last night. I think we've got another one coming up for 2 or 3 weeks. It's a 1-hour free webinar on the college essays. We go over the main essay, the short answer questions, we go over the activity list, and we discuss the expanded resume. So this is a free 1-hour webinar that you can register for, and I really recommend you all take it. These essays you need to use these essays to your advantage. What I mean by that is, you want to make sure that you're layering your application with your experience in your college applications. You want to demonstrate interest in your essays to A&M. You want to talk about that when you toured the facilities at A&M and what that experience was like and what you learned. You do the same thing for the University of Texas. They will very likely ask you, why do you want to go into this major? The essays haven't really changed in the last few years for UT. So when they're asking you these types of questions, make sure that you have an outline of research backed up about you and your connection to the university that will help you in the short answer questions. You'll have different types of writing for your college applications. You'll have a main essay, short answer question, you'll have an activity list, and you'll also have an expanded resume. I'll say it again. There's 4 pieces of writing, folks. Main essay, short answer question, activity list, and an expanded resume. Everybody freaks out over the main essay. Y'all got other things to worry about too. Your approach to the main essay is different than your approach to the short answer questions. Your main essay is about self-reflection, discovery. It's the missing link in your college application. Your short answer questions, it's backed up with research. You're sharing stories of your experiences. You're talking about the day that you toured that campus and the tour guide experience and what you learned about that university and, the quirky little things about that school, right? If you haven't done this, it's going to be hard. It's really hard to prove to an admissions officer that you're sincere about applying to their college when you don't know anything about it. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. And I'll tell you something else. When you tour a university, it can feel a whole lot different than when you look at pictures online. I have had so many folks, so many of our scholars that have put colleges on their list only to go and tour that university and have panic attacks or realize quickly they ain't going. It's different when you look at pictures on Purdue, but then you go and tour Purdue in January when there's all that snow on the ground. All right. So, you know, it's like buying a home. Parents, y'all would never buy a home without walking in, and some of y'all are going to sit in the bathtub and make sure, you know, it's all good. You want to look at the closet, make sure you can walk in that closet. Look at the neighborhood, make sure that it's safe. You feel good about that. But too many people are putting colleges on the list and they don't know anything about the neighborhoods. You know, SC, University of Southern California, it's in the ghetto. It's hood. I would really not leave my car. I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving my car out there, you know. But all you see is beautiful Photoshop pictures and everyone's smiling and the skies are wonderful. Doesn't really feel like that at night, by the way. Yes.
Some colleges I talked to, they have like an extra section that's called like optional response, where they'll ask you like, why specifically do you want to go to this college? Do you think that's like really? It's always, they're like, oh, it's always optional. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, have you heard of?
So colleges don't want to read anything extra. So her question is about optional information. Colleges don't want to read anything extra. If you are going to write anything extra, really consult with a professional about what you're going to write, because you're only getting 6 to 8 minutes with an admissions officer. Make sure that they're spending that time. I mean, they're not going to literally push a ticker, but on average, 6 to 8 minutes. You don't want to take attention away from gold on a resume to give them something very basic that's not adding to things. My recommendation is to have a balanced college list, a balanced college list of 6 to 8 schools that you're going to apply to, with safety schools, target schools, reach schools, and let's aim high. If you want to apply to an Ivy, or you want to apply to a highly selective university like Chapel Hill or UIUC or Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard, I see you. Do it. Absolutely. Let me tell you, students, you absolutely deserve every opportunity to aim high. I know a lot of folks discourage applying to universities that have very low acceptance rates. I'm not that person. I want you to go through this entire experience and feel empowered. Let's leave it all in the field. Let's go for gold. Let's not have any regrets, but let's also have insurance in the bank. You need options in the spring of your senior year, and it doesn't have to be ACC. Right? You are so capable of going into college direct, right? Now, again, stepping stone, awesome place. I actually am a product of the community college. I graduated from UT, but I needed a stepping stone. So I love a community college, but it doesn't have to be that way for everybody else. Spring of your senior year, you want to make sure that you have options. And for the love of all things good, you should be excited about even the safety schools. So stop focusing on just UT and A&M. Start sooner than later, as you all know, especially, are there any freshmen in the room? One freshman, okay. Start sooner than later, because as you can see, your application review is a 4-year campaign. So you're not early, you're on time. All right, and select the major that is really right for you. Really think about the major. That's the #1 decision you have to make. Now, I might be the very first college consultant that any of you guys have heard. When is the right time to start with college prep? It's the question I get asked all the time. You're going to get a different answer from a lot of different people. Formal college planning really starts the junior year, and that's when most consultants start working with families. What we have found is for the type of scholars we're working with, they're applying to schools like UT, A&M, Purdue, MIT, you know, basically colleges that are looking at all 4 years. We start working with incoming freshmen. No, you're not applying to college your sophomore year, but we're doing mostly career exploration, academic planning, test planning, that sort of thing. So we start working with incoming freshmen. For what we have as a STEM specialty, you know, all of our scholars, they get a college coach, and they meet with them for strategy sessions. These are 45-minute hands-on intensives in which the college coach is creating a curriculum for them. They'll actually have action items due for every single strategy session. Now, action items include career exploration. I think everybody should do that. Even if you know what you want to do, you've got to have validation and confidence behind that. What does it mean to do computer science? What does it mean to go into pre-med? What exactly does all of this mean? You've got to be able to feel good about and convicted about the major you're applying to. That tone and that energy will come through. I didn't even talk about GPT, by the way. Shoot, I knew I forgot something. So career exploration, test prep. Everyone that works with us gets test prep as well. Also essays, we get everything done by September the 1st. Everyone's working on the main essay prep right now, and they're out also drafting out their expanded resumes, and we have letters of recommendations. UT, if you're applying to UT, core teachers and the teachers that you are having a letter of recommendation from should speak to your intellectual curiosities in that major. So what I mean by that is think about the subjects that you are going to be using and you want a teacher going to bat for you that has an attachment to the major you're applying to. If you're interested in learning more about how our services work, then you can just text me. Put a little star. We'll reach out to you for a 30-minute discovery call. That's when we go over our pricing and our packages. Okay, families, any other questions? Yes.
Do you get any preference if you have a sibling activity?
Is there a sibling preference for the University of Texas? The answer is no. Okay. I'm past president of Texas X's Los Angeles chapter. Even my little girl ain't gonna have ain't gonna have any, she's gonna have to do it all on her own. Other questions back here?
Any chance the, talking about testing, and my daughter's part of the, like, first optional, are they gonna move back to required, or is it basically just required?
So really good question. So A&M has announced they will be test optional, and UT was supposed to have announced by now if they were going to be optional, but there is what's the word? The legislature is meeting right now, and there's a bill that they will be voting on sooner than later, and I have a feeling they may be going back to test required. And if UT goes that route, so we should be hearing soon, but if UT goes that route, then I'm expecting A&M to follow. So my advice is everyone should take one of these exams at least 3 times and take the exam that plays to your strength. These tests, SATs and ACTs, are 2 different tests. Make sure that you get a practice test of each, look at your scores, find the test that really is to your benefit, and focus on that exam. And if you're applying to a STEM major, a good test score is going to help you. Yes.
I heard A&M is moving off the 10%, 9%, or at least they were discussing.
A few years ago, it was 25%. So yeah, well, they just recently announced that engineering will be holistically reviewed. So I am expecting those numbers to even cut in. They're admitting way too many students. UT the same way, admitting too many of their incoming class from the top 6% or top 10%. So I'm expecting that number to even climb even lower. I was not going to be surprised if UT went to 5% this year. Yeah. Other question?
Just a follow-up on that. So when you say a holistical review, that means, excuse me, that means your class rank or percentage, it does matter, but it doesn't automatically guarantee.
Correct. So you're applying to a major at the University of Texas. Your class rank, your GPA will be important, but it is not going to seal the deal. You can be #1 in your class with an excellent test score and still not get the major you apply to if you don't have experience in that. So absolutely. Okay, y'all. You're ready to go. All right.
One last question on that. Right? So when you said optional on the test scores, so what does that mean? You know, the
So
admission officers
test
are not going to
scores-
look at it.
So test scores, competitive test scores for the University of Texas, 1480 plus, 33 ACT, A&M around a 1350, maybe even a 30 on the ACT. But depending on the major you're applying to, this would not necessarily be competitive for some STEM majors. This is too low if you're applying to computer science or business for my taste, especially if you're overrepresented in the applicant pool as an Indian American or Asian American coming from Westlake. Folks will be applying to these majors with scores that are more north of that. Yes.
If you do the SAT and ACT, and the subject test, do you get any?
Subject tests are not required anymore, so these universities will not look at that. So, and universities don't favor SAT versus the ACT. They just want to see your strongest best test score. Don't send the score that's weaker of the 2. I'll tell you that right now. Okay, guys, I gotta go and see my little girl because I think she just got out of the bath and I'm gonna make it home in time for nap time or night time. So thanks so much. Hook 'em, gig 'em, whatever you want to do. And best of luck, okay? All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. You can keep it.